Hi, my name is Viola. I was born pretty, so I've always been pretty confident. That's why what happened to me came completely out of the blue. It was an ordinary day and nothing foreshadowed trouble. I was walking down the school hallway when suddenly saw my boyfriend Frank. I didn't notice a girl standing behind him at first because he was a broad-shouldered jock. They were kissing! I couldn't believe my eyes and froze. Our relationship might have not been perfect, but that was going too far. I got angry, ran up to Frank, and told him everything I thought of him. We were arguing loudly when some strange guy walked by us. He stopped and started staring at us. I was so amped up, I pounced on him as well. "What are you looking at? Go away!" To my surprise, he actually stood up for me. The guy seemed puny and didn't look like much next to Frank. What was he? Playing a knight in shining armor? The bell rang and I had to go to class. Just imagine, that guy walked into the classroom after me. It turned out he had just been transferred, and his name was Charlie. That was when things got really weird. During the break, he declared that he'd fallen in love with me at first sight. And when I came to the dining room, he offered to carry my tray of food. I refused, but he grabbed it anyway and pulled it out of my hands. The food immediately fell on the floor. How helpful of him! One day, we had to sit at one desk in chemistry class. Everything was going well until Charlie decided I had made a mistake and he should do everything himself. Before I could stop him, he'd already mixed my reagents. We were lucky there was an explosion. We failed the lab and got bad marks. I got angry and demanded Charlie back off, but he didn't seem to hear me. He looked at me and smiled stupidly. What a fool! One day, the school decided to throw a Halloween party. They decorated the hall and all the students prepared costumes. I chose one as well and was looking forward to the party. I had a plan to get back at Frank. He always acted like a tough guy, but he was actually a coward, too afraid to watch horror movies. Have you figured it out yet? I dressed up as a zombie. I dreamed of becoming an actress since I was a kid and loved to transform into different characters. Sometimes I even put on fancy makeup and filmed different videos. So my zombie look was very realistic. You wouldn't have recognized me. I came to the hall first, hid behind the props, and started to wait. After a while, people started flowing in, including Frank and his new girlfriend. My friend Jack had organized the party and was now standing at the controller. I had asked him for a favor in advance. Jack turned on flashing lights and creeping sounds when I gave him the signal. I crept up behind Frank and grabbed him by the shoulders. He screamed like a girl. When he turned around and saw me, he almost fainted. I must have looked horrifying in that light. When the lights came back on, I quickly hid. No one saw what had scared Frank so much. Everyone started laughing at him. Even his new girlfriend moved away from him. She probably didn't want to stand next to such a coward. I changed my clothes in the bathroom and came back to the hall. My plan had worked, so I was in a great mood. After the party, Jack suddenly caught up to me. That was so cool. Could you prank my little brother like that? He's such a handful. He even broke a new console this morning. I need to teach him a lesson. Jack said that his brother wasn't afraid of zombies, so I should dress up as a monster instead. Well, all right then. Of course I agreed to help, especially since I owed him a favor. The next day, I came to school with the costume and changed into it in the bathroom. Then I sneaked to the classroom with Jack's brother, jumped out from around the corner and growled, "If you break anything else, I'll crawl out of the TV and drag you away from home." The little guy got so scared he burst out crying. The teachers came running and I barely managed to get away. During the lesson, the principal came to my classroom. By the way, I completely forgot to tell you, the principal was my mother. You probably think I have it easy because of it. To be honest, there are a lot of disadvantages to having a parent who works at your school. She's stricter with me than anyone else. She'd heard rumors that one of the high school students had changed into a creepy costume and scared a kid, and demanded the one who did it confess. She said she would figure out who it had been and punish them anyway. Naturally, I didn't say anything and pretended I had nothing to do with it. After classes, Charlie caught up to me on the way out of school. He started guessing who could have done such a horrible thing at school. It was terribly annoying. I wanted to get away from him as quickly as possible, but he trailed behind me and wouldn't leave me alone. At some point, we passed by a women's lingerie store. I went inside. I thought Charlie would definitely back off then. How wrong I was. It might be hard to believe, but he followed me inside. The fact that there were only girls in the store didn't bother him. I took a few things and went to the fitting room. Thankfully, Charlie had enough common sense not to follow me there. He got distracted by something and I sneaked away. At home, I suddenly got an idea. I had been looking for a part-time job for a while. Remember how I said my mom was very strict? That also went for pocket money. She rarely gave me any, and even when she did, it wasn't much. I like to cosplay characters and scare people. It seemed I was even good at it. What if I tried to make money off of it? The thought seemed a little crazy, but why not? I took photos of myself looking like a zombie and a monster. I tried to ensure it wouldn't be possible to recognize me in those photos. If Mom found out about what I was doing, I would be finished. I created a fake email account, registered on a job search website, posted the photos, and added a description of the services I was offering. I doubted anything would come of it, but to my surprise, I got my first job offer in the morning. A child wanted to live in a treehouse. He got up there every evening and refused to sleep in his room. His parents wanted me to scare him so that he wouldn't do it again. They asked me to dress up as a witch instead of a zombie or a monster. Of course, I immediately agreed and happily got down to business. First of all, I rummaged through my clothes and chose an outfit. I had to turn a skirt into rags. I also got a false nose, ears, and wig in the shop I bought the monster costume in. The result looked intimidating and real. In the evening, I came to the client's home. Even the parents recoiled from me. They'd brought me to the treehouse and hid in the yard. I spoke in a coarse voice. Who is sitting there all alone? Who doesn't listen to his parents? I'm going to take you away. The boy looked outside and was horrified when he saw me. I smirked and started climbing up. He burst into tears and called his parents for help. They immediately came and chased me away. The boy came down and ran to his room. The parents were very satisfied with my work and even tipped me. A couple of days after that, I got a new job offer. My first clients had recommended me to their friends whose daughter was afraid to pull her baby tooth out. They wanted me to pretend to be the tooth fairy and tell her not to be afraid. I came up with the costume myself and only had to buy wings. However, I suddenly ran into Charlie on the way out of the store. Just what I needed. He asked me what I was doing in the area. None of your business. Charlie tried to look into the bag with my costume, but then a taxi drove by, so I hailed it and I quickly got into the car. I had to change my clothes right in it. The driver was shocked. It might sound like I'm bragging, but I nailed the role of the tooth fairy. At first, the girl resisted and didn't want to pull her tooth out. But then I offered her something. I'll give you $10 if you do it. The girl liked my offer and agreed. That was one smart business lady. Word of mouth worked quickly, and soon I had a lot of clients. There were plenty of people who needed my skills. One day, I was asked to perform at a children's party and dress up as a witch again. Not to scare the kids, but to entertain them. I was doing just that when I suddenly realized that the birthday boy reminded me of someone. Where could I have seen him? The next morning, Charlie was waiting for me outside my house. He had brought flowers and sweets and offered to walk me to school. He was so annoying. I couldn't find a way to get away and had to go with him. On the way there, Charlie complimented my looks a lot. His words suddenly gave me an idea. Maybe if I looked ugly, it would scare him away. I decided to try it. The next day, before school, I put on my witch's nose, big ears, and zombie scars. I got just the look I was going for. Not my usual style. It was plain ugly. Of course, I couldn't just show up at school like that, so I ambushed Charlie next to the building. Well, Charlie, do you like my new look? He would definitely leave me alone after that. But it was a complete failure. Instead of looking horrified, Charlie smiled for some reason. What was going on in that crazy guy's head? What happened next completely blew my mind. The boy at whose party I'd played the witch turned out to be Charlie's brother. That was who he had reminded me of. Charlie had been among the guests that day, so now he recognized my props. Damn it, that was bad. Charlie gave me an ultimatum. If you don't want the principal to find out about your part-time job, you will spend a lot of time with me. The words of that blackmailer infuriated me. I had no choice but to agree. Mom already suspected something because I had money she hadn't given me. Charlie and I started seeing each other a lot after school. He took me on dates to all sorts of fun places. I didn't enjoy it. Going on dates with him was torture for me, and I told him about it. But Charlie didn't seem to notice how annoyed I looked. He continued to surprise me and gave me gifts. At some point, I suddenly realized that it wasn't that bad. Charlie made me laugh, and I felt comfortable with him. No one had ever done so many nice things for me before. It turned out he had a cool hobby. Charlie liked photography and constantly took pictures of me. I looked great in them. One day he mentioned that he dreamed of buying a particular camera. If he could save up enough money to buy it, his photos would look even more amazing. Meanwhile, I still had my part-time job to keep me busy. One day, I had clients near the school. I didn't have the time to go home and changed into my zombie costume right on the street. I looked around several times and made sure there was no one nearby. After performing at the children's party, I came back home and saw something terrible. Mom was cleaning my room and kept my box with props under the bed. She was washing the floor there. Mom, you must be tired after work. Go rest and I'll clean up myself. Mom looked at me suspiciously. You've never offered me help with this. You can't stand cleaning. I smiled and looked at her innocently. Mom hesitated a little more, but then she laughed. left. After the door had slammed behind her, I sank down on the bed with relief. I almost got busted. The next day, I came to school in a great mood, but it was quickly ruined because I was suddenly called to the principal's office before the classes. It wasn't just my mom there, but also teachers. They all looked very displeased. They had somehow found out it had been me who scared the kid in the school hallway, but the worst thing was that they had found out about my part-time job. Viola, what's the meaning of this? I never thought my daughter would act like this. 2 weeks of cleaning up at school and no summer camp on holidays. That was so unfair! I left the office angry and upset. I was mostly furious with Charlie. He was the only one who would have turned me in. Of course, Jack also knew my secret, but I was sure he wouldn't have done it. I asked him just in case, and he assured me it hadn't been him, so it had definitely been Charlie. I went to find him. You are an annoying snitch. Don't ever come near me again, got it? Charlie denied everything, but I didn't believe him. He looked at me with sad eyes and then suddenly turned around and left. I was furious! That jerk had the nerve to act like he was the wronged one. I didn't want to go to lessons at all, but I made myself stay out of trouble. I barely sat until the end of classes and was about to go home. On the way out of school, Frank suddenly caught up to me. He was looking at me and grinning nastily. Well, are you grounded? That was for humiliating me. I tensed up. What was he talking about? Frank was all too happy to tell me he ratted me out to the teachers and the principal. He had been watching me for a long time and noticed that I had been acting strangely. And the day before, he'd seen me change into the zombie costume on the street. It looked familiar, and Frank realized that I had been the one to scare him on Halloween. Then he followed me and found out about the rest. Damn it! How could I have been so stupid? Frank was such a piece of work. Wait, so Charlie hadn't actually done anything? I felt embarrassed. I called him, but he didn't pick up the phone. I remembered all the time we'd spent together. I thought about his attempt to protect me from Frank and his help, even though it wasn't always successful. The way he'd taken photos of me, surprised me, and made me laugh. I still had his address from the time I had performed at his brother's birthday party. I went to his house. I didn't stay to clean up at school. Things couldn't get any worse anyway. Charlie was definitely at home. I saw him in the window, but he wouldn't open the door for me. I was so frustrated I wanted to cry. I had ruined everything. But I wasn't one to give up. I decided to earn his forgiveness. I'd saved up quite a lot of money since I'd started my job, so I bought the camera Charlie dreamed of and sent it to him with a note of apology. Time dragged by excruciatingly slowly. An hour passed and he still hadn't called me back. He was probably still mad at me, but then I got a call. I took it and heard Charlie's voice. He thanked me for the gift and suggested we meet. We sat in a cafe, discussed everything, and made up. Then I complained to him about Frank and Mom. Not only do I have to clean up at school now, but I also got a bunch of stupid assignments. I can wave my part-time job goodbye. Suddenly Charlie came up with a good idea. You need to show your mom and everyone else that your hobby can be useful. We went to school together. Mom was still there. I asked her for permission to open a drama club at school. At first she didn't give it and got angry, but Charlie managed to convince her it was a good idea. He spoke so sweetly and charmingly that even Mom couldn't resist. It took me a few days to prepare everything, and the drama club officially opened. We staged an interesting performance with the younger students, and I played the villain. The kids loved me. Gradually, the teachers realized that I was doing something useful. My mom and I still disagree a lot, but our relationship has definitely improved. Charlie and I had started dating. He always supports me. He even convinced me to audition for a movie and made a portfolio for me using his new camera. Remember I said that I dreamed of becoming an actress? Well, you have to follow your dreams. Do you think I can do it? Write in the comments down below. Hey squad! Like to see your life in comics? Stories that are so embarrassing that even friends do not know about them. Don't say you don't have such ones. They belong on the Anon Please channel. Check it out! Click here.